Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're cracking open Volume 1 of the Aware Leadership Body of Knowledge by Andreas Metzen.
Yeah, and we're really aiming to give you a shortcut kind of to understanding the foundations of this whole approach to leading.
Exactly. Our mission really is to pull out the most important ideas, the key insights from this first volume.
Right, so you can get a good handle on what aware leadership actually is, what problems it's trying to solve, and, how it suggests you tackle them.
Less about listing every single detail.
Yeah, much more about getting to the heart of the why and the how.
And the origin story is interesting, too. Apparently, it kicked off after the author saw a BBC documentary back in 2008.
That's right, yeah, about meditation and its scientifically proven impact on brain structure. They mentioned researchers like Dr. Sarah Lazar.
Wow, so that really sparks something.
It seems so. It led Metzen down this path, including training with the Institute for Mindful Leadership. And that apparently opened up these dimensions of leading with, presence and awareness, things that fell missing from more traditional leadership stuff.
So this aware leadership thing, it's not just like abstract theory or some vague mindfulness trend.
No, not according to the source. It's positioned as really practical blend. You've got extensive career experience, like leading big changes in complex organizations,
Okay.
combined with insights from mindful leadership practices, and also this layer of sort of timeless wisdom, ideas that have been around forever.
And the goal, what's the ultimate aim?
Well, on the surface, it sounds simple. Just helping leaders be more skillful, more effective, and, importantly, more sustainable in the long run. Less burnout, more impact.
Okay, skillful, effective, sustainable. Let's unpack the basic structure then. Volume 1 lays out the whole framework, right?
It does. It's built on two core components that work together. First up, there are three essential factors.
What factors?
Okay, think of these as the inner qualities, the being part of leadership.
No being. And what are they?
They are insight, integrity, and awareness. The book presents these as like the anchors for skillful leadership.
Insight, integrity, awareness.
Got it.
And the second component.
That would be the four key functions. These are more about the outward actions, the domains where leadership happens, the doing,
You're doing, which are?
collaboration, strategy, self-mastery, and technical competencies.
Okay, so factors are who you are. Insight, integrity, awareness. Functions are what you do. Collaboration, strategy, self-mastery, technical competencies. Sounds like they need to mesh together.
Exactly. The source is really clear that these aren't separate boxes. They're deeply interconnected. They form the foundation for the whole aware leadership model.
Right. Now, before we dive deeper into what each of those means, the book talks about something called leadership truth, #2. And it sounds quite direct. It's about facing our own unskillfulness.
Yeah, and this is a really crucial starting point, according to the author. It just acknowledges the reality that leadership is messy, it's complex,
Mm-hmm.
and even really experienced leaders face challenges, big and small.
Yeah.
And often, these issues aren't just external things happening to us.
Right.
They actually stem from our own, unskillful ways of reacting or
Yeah.
setting priorities or making decisions.
Yeah.
Things that aren't actually serving us or the team.
Unskillful meaning, maybe reacting impulsively when the pressure's on, or getting stuck chasing short-term targets instead of keeping the long-term vision in mind.
Precisely. And the source lists some specific ways this unskillfulness shows up. Things that might sound familiar, like wasting time on stuff that doesn't matter, constantly getting thrown off by interruptions you haven't managed well,
Mm-hmm.
or even that nagging feeling of not being good enough, imposter syndrome. That can make leaders freeze up when they need to act.
And these personal habits, these unskillful moments, they don't just affect the leader, right? They ripple outwards.
Oh, absolutely. The source directly connects these leader behaviors to team problems. It talks about how they can really disrupt team dynamics.
Leading to things like,
Well, tangible issues. Low team productivity, for one. Trust breaking down because maybe what the leader says doesn't match what they do.
right,
Or unintentionally leaving people out, not really making the most of the diverse skills you have on the team, or just a lack of basic empathy in how people interact.
the book uses a case study, someone named Lisa, to make this concrete, which I found helpful because it shows it's not just about one type of job.
Yeah, the Lisa example is good. She shows up in different contexts. Like, as a tech manager facing a tight deadline, her unskillfulness might look like micromanaging, snapping at people.
Undermining collaboration and integrity right there.
Exactly. And her focus might be so narrow on the deadline that her decisions become inconsistent, missing the bigger strategic picture.
Okay.
Then you see her, say, in a nonprofit, maybe rushing a campaign launch. That pressure could lead her to cut corners, raising potential ethical questions, hitting integrity again.
Right.
Or maybe as an executive, she resists adopting new tools, like AI, because she's comfortable with the old way. That points to a gap in technical competencies and maybe adaptability.
What's really striking about Lisa is that her core struggles, feeling burnt out, seeing her team disengage, making those inconsistent calls, facing ethical tight spots, or pushing back against change, they all seem to come back to these underlying unskillful patterns.
Yes, reactive decisions, priorities being off, not being fully present. It's less about her specific job title and more about her approach to the work of the people.
And that's the core idea of Truth Hashtag too, isn't it? Recognizing this isn't about beating yourself up.
No, not at all. It's framed as the essential first step for growth. You have to see it to change it. It opens the door.
Which leads us nicely into Leadership Truth Hashtag 3, the solution. How do you actually transform these challenges?
And this is where the aware leadership framework really comes into play. Source brings Lisa back to show how consciously using the factors and functions helps turn those tough spots into, well, opportunities.
Okay, so let's take her burnout example. How does the framework help there?
Right, so burnout fits under personal effectiveness challenges. To tackle it, she'd actively use the self-mastery function, things like setting better boundaries, managing her energy,
Okay.
and, crucially, applying the awareness factor,
Mm.
using mindfulness practices like the ones described in the book to kind of regain her perspective and presence.
And what about the team disengagement that maybe her earlier actions caused?
That's a team dynamics challenge.
Mm.
She transforms that by consciously using the collaboration function,
Mm-hmm.
maybe really delegating this time, building a shared sense of purpose,
Uh-huh.
and also by demonstrating integrity, actively listening with empathy, rebuilding that trust through consistent open actions, walking the talk.
Makes sense. And those inconsistent decisions, the strategic ones.
That's labeled a strategic clarity challenge. She addresses it by properly using the strategy function, not just making plans, but ensuring projects clearly align with the bigger vision.
Mhm.
And that's powered by insight, gaining perspective on the whole situation, including her own potential biases.
And the ethical tight spots.
That links directly back to integrity. Applying integrity means choosing transparency, making sure her actions line up with stated values. That rebuilds credibility.
Right.
And it also draws on self-mastery to manage her own conduct ethically, especially when things get stressful.
Okay, last one for Lisa. Her resistance to new tools like AI.
That falls under adaptability and skills.
Yeah.
She turns this around by developing her technical competencies, actually learning about and adopting the tools.
But not just blindly adopting them.
No, exactly. She uses insight to think about the wider impact, ensuring they're used ethically.
Mm.
So in that nonprofit scenario, maybe AI helps fundraising, but she ensures it's fair and transparent in how it engages donors.
It's really helpful to see it applied like that. The framework isn't just concepts on a page. It provides a way to actively work through these very real, often tangled up challenges.
Yeah, and turn them into chances for growth, really, whatever your specific role or industry.
Right.
That's the core message of transformation in the source. The factors and functions become your tools for more skillful leadership.
Okay, so we've seen the basic structure and how it works in practice with Lisa. Let's dig a bit deeper into some of the unique aspects of these factors and functions. What are some key takeaways the source really emphasizes?
Sure. Let's start with insight. We said it's about perspective and intention. Now, besides the usual stuff like understanding your purpose and values, a really key idea here is interdependence.
Interdependence, meaning?
Meaning recognizing that leadership just isn't a solo gig.
Yep.
Your success, your effectiveness, it's all tied up with the system you're in, the people around you. Everything's connected.
That sounds like it connects to the idea of letting go of ego, realizing that focusing only on yourself often gets in the way of that interdependence.
Exactly. And the source also stresses using mindfulness in decision-making. Not just being mindful generally, but applying it specifically when you make choices for more clarity and better alignment, which, links insight directly back to the awareness factor.
Right, it's about seeing things clearly, including your own biases before you jump in.
Precisely.
Okay, what about integrity? What stands out there?
Well, integrity here isn't just about basic honesty. A key insight is the focus on authentic dialogue.
Authentic dialogue.
Yeah, it includes transparency and honesty, of course, but it's also about actively encouraging questions, asking for feedback, creating an environment psychological safety where people feel okay speaking up, even with bad news or different ideas.
And the link between how you act your conduct and your values.
The insight there is the emphasis on consciously, actively aligning your actions with your stated values. especially when things get tough. The book even suggests practical things like a value alignment checklist.
Not as a rigid rule book, maybe, but as a prompt.
Exactly, a prompt for reflection when you're facing a difficult choice.
Moving on to awareness. Presence and practice were the key words.
Right. And a really crucial insight here is about sustaining presence in high-pressure situations. It's one thing to be aware when everything's calm.
Yeah, easy then.
Right. But how do you stay grounded, present, and responsive when everything is hitting the fan? The source points to specific practices you can use in those moments. Mindful breathing, noticing physical sensations, self-compassion as keys to building resilience, not just something you do on a meditation cushion later.
So it's about making awareness an active, ongoing practice woven into the workday.
Absolutely. Talks about building a mindful leadership routine,
Uh,
maybe even using team rituals to sustain mindfulness together. The underlying idea is that cultivating awareness is like training any other skill. It takes consistent effort.
Okay, let's switch to the functions, the doing parts. Technical competencies sounds quite broad. What's the specific aware leadership angle here?
It is broad. It covers a lot. Quality management systems like ISO 9001, navigating the whole digital age with AI, IoT, cybersecurity, supply chain management, data analytics.
So the usual suspects for business competence.
Yes, but the key insight isn't just possessing these skills. It's how an aware leader approaches and uses them.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, take quality management. The source mentions established standards and best practices like ISO 9001, or industry ones like EAQF for French automakers, or EUMDR for medical devices. He calls these low-hanging fruits.
Low-hanging fruits.
Yeah. The insight is that an aware leader sees compliance not as a chore, but as something you naturally integrate into daily work because you understand it actually leads to better efficiency, higher quality, which aligns with integrity and good strategy. It's not just ticking a box.
And with the digital age skills like AI.
The insight there is about balancing the opportunities using AI for analysis, IoT for tracking inventory smartly, with a real awareness of the ethical implications and safety concerns.
So thinking about the impact on people.
Exactly. The source mentions specific standards like ISO 10218 for industrial robot safety, but the bigger point is that the aware leader thinks beyond just, can we implement this to should we, and how does this affect everyone involved? Again, linking technical confidence back to insight and integrity.
Got it. Okay, collaboration. We know communication is key, but what else is highlighted?
A really interesting insight in the source's take on collaboration is the emphasis on empathy being fundamental to conflict resolution. It's not just about having a procedure.
Right.
It's about fostering open communication with empathy, using structured models for mediation, like Thomas Kilmann maybe, but grounding the whole process and really trying to understand the other person's perspective.
So the structure provides fairness, but empathy allows for real resolution.
That's the idea. And another insight under collaboration is how it treats resources. It's not just about allocating tasks, but mindfully managing resources, including people's time and energy. Things like work-life balance and resource leveling are framed as part of effective collaboration, not separate HR issues.
Interesting. What about strategy? What's the core insight there?
Well, beyond the standard planning models, a key insight is how it connects vision directly to fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation.
So the strategy isn't just a top-down document.
Exactly. For an aware leader, the strategy is alive. It needs to involve and inspire the team. And adaptability, preparing for change, isn't an add-on. It's built into the strategic thinking from the start.
And you mentioned scenario planning earlier.
Yes, that's presented as a really vital strategic tool, especially now with so much uncertainty. The insight is that it's not just a theoretical exercise. It's a practical way to build organizational resilience and strategic clarity.
How?
By actively thinking about different possible futures and developing flexible responses. And importantly, by consciously working to mitigate cognitive biases, like anchoring bias, that can skew planning.
Right.
Using tools like stakeholder journey mapping helps bring in diverse perspectives.
Okay, last function, self-mastery. How does the source frame this one? It sounds quite personal.
It is personal, but it's presented as a core leadership function. It really ties everything together. A key insight is framing work-life balance not just as nice to have, but as a crucial part of leverage.
Leverage. How so?
The idea is that an aware leader understands that taking care of themselves, proper rest, self-care, maybe mindfulness practices, isn't selfish. It's actually essential for maintaining their effectiveness, their resilience, and their ability to empower and delegate well to others. Your personal sustainability fuels your leadership capacity.
That makes a lot of sense. Your ability to lead effectively depends on your own state.
Precisely. And another key insight under self-mastery is the deliberate integration of learning and reflection into your daily routine. Not just hoping you learn from experience,
Right.
but actually scheduling brief moments for reflection, maybe using simple tools the book suggests like daily integration planners or checklists, cultivating that growth mindset actively.
Wow. Okay, so pulling it all together, aware leadership,
Hmm.
based on this first volume, it's definitely not just a checklist. It's this comprehensive approach where developing those inner qualities, insight, integrity, awareness, directly fuels your ability to act skillfully in those key areas. Collaboration, strategy, self-mastery, and using your technical competencies well.
That really is the essence of it. This deep dive, we've tried to pull out those foundational concepts and also some of the specific practical tools and frameworks the source mentions, hopefully giving you that shortcut to grasping the core of this approach. It really helps connect the dots between who you need to be as a leader and what you need to do.
Yeah, it underscores that skillful, effective, and sustainable leadership isn't just about learning more techniques or processes externally. It seems to be fundamentally about integrating that self-awareness, that integrity, strategic thinking that embraces purpose and change, collaboration built on real empathy, and technical skill applied mindfully.
And it all seems grounded in that mindful presence and the commitment to ongoing practice and reflection.
So, a final thought for you to mull over, drawn from this deep dive. What if the key to navigating the complexities of modern leadership isn't just acquiring more technical skills, but fundamentally shifting how you approach your work, your team, and yourself, as this deep dive into aware leadership suggests?